What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Shelves, and it's been a while. It has been a while. I think this is like 3, maybe even 4 months of a break. God damn, time flies. But nonetheless, there was a number of months where I didn't really buy too much, and then when we got into September and October, I just had so much going on that there was no time to get a video out, and so you are going to be treated today to a big, giant, fat-ass, supersized episode of Off the Shelves. If you're joining me for the first time, this is essentially my Blu-ray haul, Blu-ray collection update video. I tell you about all the Blu-rays, 4Ks that I bought over usually the last month, but this over the last quarter of the year. And so I'm going to start off with the stack of all of the brand new movies that I have bought. Then we'll move on to like the 4K double dips or some of the older films that I bought for the first time. And then we will end on all of the movies that I've gotten from the last number of horror packs. Starting off with the new releases, we've got Creed 3. Now, I really love Creed and Creed 2. This one was my least favorite of the trilogy, but I still liked it. I enjoyed the more personal story that we got here. You know, there was a big controversy that Rocky Balboa and Sylvester Stallone was not involved with this because of disputes that he has with the producers of this franchise. And I walked in as a massive Rocky fan, very unsure how I was going to feel about that. And aside from one scene in the movie, it doesn't feel like a story that necessitates the presence of Rocky Balboa. So they at least pulled that off well. Where the movie loses me a bit is that Michael B. Jordan, this was his directorial debut, and he's a massive anime fan, and he implements some anime style into the fights. One in the beginning of the movie, and one that's the big final fight between him and Jonathan Majors. And I didn't care too much for that style. I appreciate the fact that he tried to do something different, and I think that that's important, and I commend him for that. But as somebody who personally is not a big fan of anime at all, I thought it didn't quite fit the franchise, and it kind of took me out, especially the final fight completely took me out of that. So still liked it, still thought it was a good movie, but one of my least favorites of the Rocky and Creed franchise. But I would still say, it's on the high end of stream it for sure. Now we have one of the best, if not the best, horror films of the year in Talk to Me. This is the 4K as well, and this is just a really great movie. You know, this was hyped all to hell, so I was trying to walk in with modest expectations, because sometimes the horror community can get a little bit silly with what it overhypes, but this was absolutely worth the hype. It's a very good, interesting story. It's a very unique take on ghost and possessions, which I'm a big fan of if they do something unique with it. I am not a fan of it all if it's the same old shit. So essentially you got a bunch of high school kids that are using demonic possession as like a party game, and things go very wrong very quickly, and this movie gets pretty rough and brutal. And it ends on some notes that definitely is thought-provoking, and it left it open somewhat for follow-ups, but at the same time, it's a nice isolated story. But it was so successful that they quickly announced Talk to Me 2. So we're going to get a follow-up to this. So far, this is possibly my favorite horror film of the year. So definitely check this one out. That's a go out and buy it. Now we have the movie that has probably stuck with me the most this year, and that is Infinity Pool. This is a movie that I didn't really know what to expect from. You know, I thought Brandon Cronenberg's last film was okay, in Possessor. It was definitely brutal. It was definitely memorable, but wasn't necessarily a movie I'd ever revisit. And this is kind of along the same lines, but I found this to be a much more thought-provoking movie. You essentially have Skarsgård here that goes off into this foreign country and gets into a little bit of trouble and finds out that they have this program to where if you are convicted of a crime that requires the death penalty, you can, and you have money, you can pay to have a clone created of your body, and your clone can undergo the death penalty for you. And so essentially he, after that point, just starts to do whatever the fuck he wants with Mia Goth and this group of people. They just go on a little crime spree. And if they get caught, fuck it. I just put some money down and get a clone. He endures my death penalty and I keep going. So it's a really trippy sci-fi horror concept. It's got a really interesting commentary on kind of the lack of accountability of the rich. And so I really enjoyed this one. It's very weird. It's very trippy, and it's very, dark and unusual, so it's probably not a movie I would ever rewatch that often if I do, but it was worth checking out, it was worth buying, and it's definitely worth talking about. So I would say to go out and buy it, but if it sounds like maybe that might be a little weird for you, at least stream it and check it out. Now we have Avatar: The Way of Water, and this is such a weird movie because I was one of those people that I felt like, okay, Avatar was cool, but nobody really talks about Avatar. So, like, is Avatar 2 going to make anywhere near the money of the first one? And I was genuinely surprised that it did. I'm not really in the business of doubting James Cameron, but I had my skepticism on whether this movie was going to be as successful as they thought. I was proven wrong, but it hasn't stuck with me at all. Similar to the first film. It's like these weird pop culture events that just don't penetrate into the zeitgeist whatsoever. And this is right along the same lines where, aside from James Cameron horrors, I don't hear anybody talk about this movie anymore. So I bought it because I like it. I like the franchise so far, and visually it was incredible. But I don't know. I don't really have much to say about Avatar: The Way of Water. Just because of the visuals alone, I would say buy it. But story-wise, it's a stream it. So I don't know. It's on Disney Plus. Just check it out there, I guess. Moving on from that to one of the best movies of last year that finally got the Blu-ray release. This is the 4K edition of Prey. And I must take a little pause here and go on a small rant and say to kiss my ass, Best Buy. I'm glad you're getting out of the fucking Blu-ray game because you suck. Because I pre-ordered the exclusive 4K Blu-ray Steelbook from them months ago, as soon as they announced it, like the fucking day that it went on the market, and those bitches lost my order. And when I went to go reorder it, they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no more of these available. You want a refund?" Yeah, refund me, and I'm gonna fucking bastards. Sorry, it's not that serious. Nonetheless, I had to order this from Amazon, so I got the regular old peasant 4K. So this is essentially the Predator movie that a lot of us have been waiting for a long time. It goes back to a mid-level budget. This is a period piece movie where they go way back in time to this little indigenous community, and a kind of a indigenous style predator descends upon them and starts hunting. And so you have the lead character here, this girl who's trying to prove herself to her tribe that is taking down the predator and taking him on. And it's just a really fucking good movie. It's really cool. If you love the first Predator, but you've been disappointed by most, if not all, of the sequels, this for sure is the best one since the original, in my opinion. So this is a go out and buy it all day long. It is available to watch on Hulu if you're not a physical media person, but why wouldn't you be? Now we have the Steelbook of Scream 6. And, you know, I had high hopes for this movie, and for the first 3/4 or more, I was solid saying this is definitely my favorite Scream sequel. This movie's fucking awesome. And then it went way off the rails for me, like in the last 10 minutes. As soon as the ghost face reveal happens, everything to the credits, I just damn near hated. So this is one of my least favorite Scream sequels, but still a pretty good movie. You know, the Scream track record for me is solid as fuck. This, along with Evil Dead, to me are the most consistent quality of horror franchises. So I had fun with this. The New York setting was cool. You definitely got a little bit more brutality in the kills. Not a ton, but a little bit more. I like the characters here for the most part. So everything up to the ghost face reveal and the motivations and the identities of the killer, which I thought was ridiculous, I really enjoyed this one. So I would say to stream this one. Usually I stick this one off to its side with TV stuff, but it's the only one that I have, so we're just going to keep it here with new releases. Possibly my favorite thing ever to come out this year across all media, and that is The Last of Us television series from HBO. As somebody who is a massive fan of The Last of Us video games, especially the first one, I adored this TV series. To me, it was absolute perfection, and I don't say that lightly, because I'm somebody who should be more often than not, more critical of adaptations of things that I love. I'm the guy who's going to get nitpicky about things that you fucked up and did wrong and didn't get right. And so this, to me, I loved every single second of it. I got very lucky and checked out a screener of this, and it killed me not to be able to discuss what I saw with other fans and friends of mine that love the video games. And I actually watched the entire season on my screeners twice before the show even debuted live for everybody. And then I watched it again week to week as I did recaps and did live streams. I loved this. This is absolutely 5 out of 5. If I could give it 6 out of 5, I would give it that. To me, if you're a Last of Us fan and you wanted a respectful and a actual faithful adaptation, I can't imagine a better version of what we got, and I cannot wait to see what they do with The Last of Us Part 2, because I'm sure they're going to change up and alter some things, and I'm completely anxious to see what they do with that. So that's absolutely a go out and buy it. Buy it twice. Buy it 3 times. Now we have Renfield, one of the bigger surprises this year. And, for a while, this was my number 1 horror film of the year because I really miss good horror comedies. And to me, this one was great at both. You have Nicolas Cage here as Dracula, which ticket sold. My ass is in the seat. And you have Nicholas Hoult here playing kind of his undead servant. And he's trying to break away from the toxic relationship of him and Dracula. And so it's a very fun and quirky movie that's hyper violent, hyper gory, maybe a little bit too much CGI blood, but nonetheless, it's so over the top gory that it doesn't feel as out of place in this as it does with most horror films. And Nicolas Cage's Dracula is just chef's kiss. It's just fucking hilarious. So I really enjoyed this one. Awkwafina, probably my biggest negative. I just don't care for her as an actress. Nothing against her, but every movie she's in, she's one of my least favorite parts. But she's okay in here. But I really dug this one, had a good time with it, got a lot of laughs, so I would say go out and buy it. I bought this one for my girls. It was their birthday just last week, but I did enjoy this movie. That's the Barbie movie. I was there for Barbenheimer. I experienced the whole thing. And, I saw this with all 3 of my kids. They got 3 very different reactions. This is not a kid's movie. But there's enough here going on that I think even little kids would have some fun with it without really knowing fully what they're discussing. But it's interesting. It's a very satirical movie. It's not just a surface value, bringing little dolls to life and cash grabbing. They actually do some really interesting and thought-provoking stuff with this. I didn't feel like they stuck the landing very well. Some of the messaging that they had was very heavy-handed and ham-fisted. I felt like some of the stuff was a little irresponsible that they were discussing, but nonetheless, it wasn't offensive to me in any way. It was just something that I felt like they could have tightened up how well they did their message a little better, but I had a good time with this one, so even though I bought it for my girls, if they throw it on and I walk in, I wouldn't mind sitting down and seeing it again. I would say stream it. Now we have Knock at the Cabin, which is a movie that I had high hopes for, and I did like it, but I wish that I would have loved it. It's a movie that got a little less interesting as it went on, and this is the newest M. Night Shyamalan film, and essentially it tells a story of 4 people that come into the woods, and they knock at this cabin where this family is there, and they tell them that we are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The world is going to end if one of you does not kill one of your other family members. And so it was a really intriguing concept. And you have Dave Bautista here as kind of the leader of the 4 horsemen. I thought he did a fantastic job and just love seeing how that guy continues to advance as an actor. You got Rupert Grint in here from the Harry Potter movies, and he is fucking good in this one, where I really wanted to see a lot more of him. So the concept I thought was interesting, but as it went along, to my disappointment, it wasn't nearly as twisty or mind-bending as a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's other films. This is very straightforward. And I felt like by the end of it, this movie needed some kind of a reveal or some kind of a plot twist or some kind of something to give a bit more oomph to the finale. And it just kind of fizzles out. So it's intriguing. It's worth checking out. It's definitely tense and wild. But to me, it was the less interesting version of what this could have been. And even just reading the synopsis of the novel that this is based off of, or the short story ends in a much more interesting and thought-provoking way than the movie. So why he decided to change it, I'm not sure, but I would say to stream that one. One that just came in the mail today is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. And while I am not nearly as high on this as a lot of people, some people have this as number 1 of the year, best animated film of all time, all that nonsense. Not nonsense, all that craziness. This one I really enjoyed, but this is one of those movies that have come out recently where the part 1 side of it frustrated me. This is one half of a story. Now, there's an argument to be made that the Gwen Stacy storyline comes to a full circle, which I can agree with that, but that to me felt like more of a subplot than the actual full story of the movie that this is developing. So the animation, some of, if not the most impressive and just dazzling animation that I've seen in a long time. They do multiple styles. They blend it all together perfectly. It's incredible visually. Character-wise, the character arcs that they're setting up here for Miles and especially Miles, but other characters that are involved like Gwen Stacy are really intriguing. If you like the first movie, you will absolutely like this one. It was just the way that it wrapped up and left me so unsatisfied. And now that the Across the Spiderverse has been, or Beyond the Spiderverse has been delayed until whenever, that's all the more frustrating. Like, I was pissed whenever I thought that I was getting Beyond the Spiderverse in the next year. And now who knows when we're going to get it. So that this new trend that we've had of giving us half of a movie and titling it part one just to make us wait painfully for the rest of the story, I'm not a big fan of. But nonetheless, very good movie, very good animated film. I would say go out and buy it. Evil Dead Rise, a movie that was supposed to be a VOD film, and then they said, you know what, this is pretty fucking good, let's put it in theaters. And I agree, this is a very good Evil Dead film. Like I said earlier with Scream, Evil Dead and Scream, some of the most consistent horror films and horror franchises out there. This is taking the Evil Dead Cabin in the Woods concept and putting it into a high-rise apartment. And the gore, as you would expect with an Evil Dead film, is plentiful and relentless. There's certain directions this movie takes with which characters die that it gives no fucks about your feelings for anybody. And I appreciate that very brutal approach. To be honest, it's been a while since I've seen it to be able to tell you specifically what my negatives were with it. But I didn't feel the characters were as interesting as other Evil Dead films. I felt like maybe there was times where it stuck a little too close to the Evil Dead formula. And by the end of it, I liked it quite a bit. But it's not a movie that stuck with me the way that the Evil Dead remake was the second time that I watched it. The first time, for some reason, I was in a bad mood and didn't like the movie at all. But it didn't quite reach the heights of the best of this franchise for me. But it was solid. I enjoyed this one. So I would say if you're an Evil Dead fan, absolutely buy it. If you're on the fence, stream it. Because it is available on HBO Max, I believe. I could be wrong. The Super Mario Brothers movie, what seemed to be was going to be the top grossing movie of the year easily until Barbie came along. Oh, that's shocker. But I enjoyed this one. You know, it had a couple of faults with it that Illumination films had, where they use really awkward soundtracks of popular songs that don't fit what's going on whatsoever. The story could have had a bit more impact. They could have taken a little more time with the script. But as a Super Mario Brothers experience, I thought this movie hit most of the marks that it needed to hit. I felt like there was a lot of fun to be had. The animation and the world they created was fun. Some of the situations that they have that are very much calling back to all the different eras of Mario games was a lot of fun. Jack Black was incredible as Bowser. And so I had a good time with this one. Saw it in theaters. I've watched it at home at least twice with my kids, and I bought it because I'm sure we're going to watch it more and more. So I enjoyed this one. I think this one's a bit more rewatchable than Across the Spiderverse, just because it's, I don't know, a little bit more just easy, digestible entertainment, I guess. But I had fun with that one. I was not near as hard on that one as everybody else seemed to be. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Oh, that was also, I would say go out and buy that one. I had a good time with it. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the most recent movie of the MCU that I gave any shits about. As somebody who used to adore the MCU and get so hyped for it, I just don't give a fuck anymore. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, a very good closeout to that trilogy and to a lot of these characters. I'm sure some of them we're going to see carry on the future. We'll find out when we get there. But even if this was the last that we saw of all these characters, they did a good job at wrapping up the storylines, the character arcs, especially Rocket the Raccoon. This movie is gut-wrenching when it comes to his storyline. Some good humor here, another great soundtrack. It's not as good as the original for me. To me, the original is still the best, but this one is the best MCU movie that I've seen in a while, and what I liked about it the most was that it stayed focused on being a final piece of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. It wasn't worried about building out the future of the MCU or teasing Kang or following up on 3 Disney Plus shows. It didn't have any of the faults of a lot of the recent MCU projects, and so that was a big sigh of relief for me. So if you're a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, this is absolutely a must-watch. If you're a fan of the MCU who's been on the fence about recent releases, this is one of the better, certainly by a landslide, of the recent releases. So check this one out. Go out and buy it. Whew, man, I got so many of these. Why did I wait so long? Why the fuck did you guys let me wait so long? John Wick, Chapter 4. A movie that it might end up being my favorite movie of the year. This was the first movie of 2023 that I loved. This year started out very rocky for me. to where there was just nothing that I was loving, to where I even had people calling me out. They're like, why are you so negative on everything? And I'm like, I'm not trying to be. It just fucking, everything's been so mediocre. This was the first movie I walked out of and I was like, fuck yes, that was goddamn awesome. I really enjoyed the John Wick movies. I love action films. Certain days of the week, action is actually my favorite genre of film. Most people would say that horror should be, but you know, there's quite a few days where the action does a lot more for me. So I walked into this one not sure what to expect because I was slightly let down by the third film. That is my least favorite of the four so far. And I wasn't sure if this was going to continue that trend or get back to the first two films that were more of what I liked. And this ended up being my favorite of the four so far. And what I loved about it was that not only was the action just mind-blowingly good and even crazier than the third film, which seemed impossible, but I really liked the villain and the plot that was going on with Skarsgård. And there was a lot of different things that they put in here to kind of implement some style that I really appreciated. There was a really cool direct homage to the Warriors that just sent me onto cloud 9 in the third act of this movie. So I had a great time with this one. This is in competition with one other movie that I do not have a physical copy of yet for my number one of the year. And we'll see what the last 2 months of the year holds. Maybe something will knock this out of the top spot, but one of my favorites, faux show. Now we have one of the most underrated movies and one of the bigger surprises of the year, and that is Cobweb. This is a horror film that was released the weekend that Barbenheimer came out, and this was just kind of shit out into select theaters, wasn't marketed whatsoever, and was just quickly abandoned by, I believe, Lionsgate. Yeah, Lionsgate. I don't understand why. Why was this movie not released in October? This would have killed in October. No pun intended. I don't want to overhype it. The movie has some issues. The movie certainly has a bit of a struggle coming to an end. Some people would probably say that the movie doesn't really have an ending, and I'm one of those people. You know, it ends in an awkward spot, but this is a really tense movie. This has some seriously creepy images and creepy sound design. It's got a really cool, like, dark gothic fairy tale vibe to it. The central darker performances of Anthony Starr and Lizzie Kaplan, forgot her name for a second, as the parents of this kid. They are fucking terrifying. This is one of the best horror films of the year that not enough people saw. It's on VOD now, so please right that wrong and check it out. I highly recommend this one. It took some nice twists and turns and surprises that I really enjoyed. And even though it didn't completely stick the landing, I felt like this was such a shame that this did not get the treatment and the backing by the studio that it deserves. So I would say go out and buy this one. And now we have reached the final addition to my new release pile, and we have No Hard Feelings, the big raunchy sex comedy of the year. And I liked this. I bought it because I want to check it out again. I want to watch it with my wife and see how much she enjoys it. But, you know, I like the fact that Jennifer Lawrence did something like this. Because for a while there, I kind of was getting sick of her. Because as soon as she hit it big and was, you know, an Oscar winner, it kind of felt like all of her movie choices were just so predictable. It's like, okay, here we go. You're just going to be doing Oscar bait type stuff for the rest of your career. And she was just getting a bit overexposed. So I'm glad she kind of faded in the background for a little bit, and then came out with something like this that you don't typically see A-list Oscar winners ever return to much of my disappointment. Like, why Tom Hanks doesn't do movies like Big anymore, I'll never understand. But nonetheless, this is Jennifer Lawrence playing a very slutty role. Let's just call a spade, to where essentially she is paid to seduce and have sex with this kid who is very timid and needs to come out of his shell. And in return for that, she will be given a car, which she needs for her Uber driver job. So it is a very raunchy sex comedy that has some very risky situations. There is a fight scene on the beach that everybody's been talking about who saw this. That's definitely worth the price of admission alone for many different reasons. But it's very funny. My problem with it is that even though this is one of the more raunchy comedies in recent memory, it still feels incredibly tame compared to what comedies, and especially raunchy comedies, used to be. Comedy has been killed, absolutely snuffed out by society's increasing sensitivity to me. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain things that it is good and it is beneficial that we become a bit more self-aware about and that we become a little bit more careful about and that we're more respectful of. At the same time, comedy is supposed to push boundaries. Comedy is supposed to be uncomfortable. Comedy is supposed to fucking offend you. If you think that things are supposed to be funny and inoffensive, then you have killed comedy. Now, there are lines that we should not cross, but there are also lines that should be crossed. There's a reason why when a stand-up comic says some shit that is so offensive and risky and like, oh my God, I can't believe those words came out of their mouth, you're typically laughing your fucking ass off. It's because they're saying the shit the rest of us are thinking and are too afraid to say. That's comedy. And we have not had that style of comedy in film in at least 7 years, and probably even longer than that. And the more that society tends to get this way, the worse comedy is going to get. So that little mini rant is as far as I'm going to go today. I've said this numerous times, so I'm kind of a broken record when it comes to that, but that's this movie's downfall, is that even though it is pushing the boundaries more than most recent comedies, it is still extremely tame compared to the comedies that I grew up on. So I liked it. I would say stream it. All right, now we're going to move on to the older films, some of which are like double dips to get the 4K. Some of them are first-time buys. A lot of these I have not seen yet. So we have Pig, which is a movie I haven't even opened yet, by Nicolas Cage that everybody has told me is really good, so I've been curious about it. I bought it a couple months ago. Haven't seen it yet. Brotherhood of the Wolf, pretty interesting movie. I bought this for the 31 on 31 back in May. So have I not done one of these since April? I don't know. This was sticking in the pile. Maybe I've talked about this one before. But Brotherhood of the Wolf is a period piece take on the werewolf genre, kind of. It was interesting. You got some martial arts in here. You got a little bit of horror. It wasn't a big favorite of mine on the list of movies, but it's just not really my type of movie. So I would say stream it. It's interesting. Ginger Snaps, another movie that I bought for this year's 31 on 31 back in May, the Creatures of the Night episode. And this one, I've had a lot of people tell me over the years is awesome. I didn't really care for this movie at all. It was pretty close to the bottom of my list. So this one, I would actually say skip it, unless you are a gothic chick that spends a lot of headspace in dark places and has like a chip on your shoulder for society. When you watch this movie, you get an image of in your head of the core audience, the fan base for this, the people that are going to have Ginger Snap posters on their walls for 10 years. And that's kind of the crowd for it. So if that's you, this is your movie. This is your Bible. But everybody else, it didn't do much for me. The 4K of Malignant, one of the bigger surprises, was it last year or the year before? Had to be 2 years ago. Time flies. But this is a movie by James Wan that I absolutely loved. I loved how bonkers and ridiculous and crazy it was. The fuck out of here, dust. I had to have the 4K. So this is a movie that I liked in theaters and then rewatched it and loved it and then rewatched it and loved it even more. And so I look forward to rewatching it in pristine 4K and hopefully loving it even more. Speaking of pristine 4K, we've got one of the best Batman movies ever made in Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I adore the Batman animated series. This has always been like in my top 3 or 4 Batman movies of all time, and so I had to have the 4K of this one. This is a go out and buy it all day long. You can check it out on HBO Max if you've never seen it before. It holds up extremely well, but if you are an old school fan like me, guess what? There's a 4K that has your name on it. Check it out. Now we have the recent 4K releases of the Shout Factory, Scream Factory, Chucky movies, and they did this treatment for the first 3 movies last year, and now they're following up with the other 4. So you've got Bride of Chucky, and I do have all of the variant covers on here. I took off the classic posters and put these unique artist ones on here. So very cool stuff. That's kind of one of the biggest appeals of Scream Factory is their artwork. You have Seed of Chucky, which is a movie I hate, but very cool cover for that movie for sure. And it's bundled with it, so it wasn't like I could pick and choose. Curse of Chucky, which is one of my favorites. Probably the coolest cover, honestly. That's pretty fucking awesome. And then Cult of Chucky, which I'm not a huge fan of either. So I got all 4 of those. I have not watched them yet because as much of a Chucky fan as I am, I've seen these movies dozens of times, and so I'm kind of not in the mood to watch them right now. But nonetheless, I got these. I got the posters that came with it. Scream Factory continues to be the best at what they do. As far as ratings, Bride of Chucky's a go out and get it. I was going to say go out and get it now. Wow. Ken Domick fans? Anybody? KBD Productions? Bride of Chucky is a go out and buy it. Curse of Chucky is a go out and buy it. Seed of Chucky is skip it. And Cult of Chucky is barely skating by with the stream it. Now we have a little bit of a tease for the return of the review series that I have infuriatingly delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. That's Memoirs of an Invisible Man. This is a John Carpenter film that I've never seen before in my life. So probably in November, you're going to get a review for this, as well as Big Trouble in Little China, and hopefully even a third film. But I swear to God, that review series is cursed, because the last 4 times that I have announced and I have literally wrote on my calendar when to continue it, something has happened that has stopped me. The last one, I was in the hospital. So the world does not want me to continue talking about John Carpenter films. Bad Moon, one of the movies that was being discussed to be a part of the 31 on 31 Creatures of the Night, but didn't make the cut, but I did like it, so I bought it. Pretty good movie. I would say stream it. Dr. Giggles, there was a recent sale on Amazon of Scream Factory releases, and this is one that I've always heard about but never seen, so I have no idea if I'm going to like it or not, if it's going to be terrible, but it was like $7, so threw caution to the wind. Check that one out. Thelma and Louise 4K set here by, is it 4K? Yes, 4K by Criterion. One of the best movies ever. I love this movie. It's one of the best Ridley Scott movies. It's, you know, a feminist movie before feminism got kind of annoying in media, to be honest with you, but one of the best. Absolutely love that one. That's a go out and buy it absolutely all day. Vacation 4K, one of the best classic 80s comedies. I'm a bit more partial to Christmas Vacation, to be honest with you, but I still love this original too. Had to pick this one up on 4K. That's also a go out and buy it. Single White Female, another one of those Shout Factory releases that I got on Amazon pretty cheap. This is a really good movie. It's a good classic 90s, like erotic thriller type thing. I would say this is a go out and buy it, because it's not going to be very expensive to buy it nowadays. But yeah, you have Bridget Fonda, who sadly has left acting. You know, she's enjoying life as a civilian, and good for her, I guess. Jennifer Jason Leigh, extremely creepy in this one. If you've never seen this one, it's worth checking out. The Town That Dreaded Sundown, as well as Body Parts, 2 other movies that I have never seen before that I picked up on this Scream Factory sale. I have heard a lot of slasher fans say that this is great, never seen it, and I have heard from my father that this is great and never seen it. So I got a number of movies on that sale just for this fact that I had never seen them before, and I want to have it on the shelf so that I can forget that it's there and still never fucking see it. 4K of Upgrade. I loved this movie. I wasn't expecting much from it for some reason, but when I saw this, I was like enamored with it. I called Sean Chandler. I'm like, dude, go to the fucking theater today and check this out. So I love this. I wish Lee Winnell would make another movie very soon, because this is badass. It's a very cool, dark, like action, horror, sci-fi movie. If you've never seen it, basically a guy has a microchip implanted into him so that he can walk again because he's paralyzed. And it has an AI capability to where he can let it take control of his body, and he fucks people up. So that is the best sales pitch that I can give you for it. The 4K release of, was it Criterion? No, it was the Arrow release of Carlito's Way. This is actually probably my favorite Al Pacino movie. Most people would say Scarface or The Godfather. I prefer Carlito's Way. I prefer the character of Carlito because I actually can sympathize with him, where Tony Montana is unsympathetic whatsoever, as badass as that movie is and as badass as that character is. And The Godfather is just a little slow for me. It's great, but that is an extremely rewatchable movie with a character that I love. Sean Penn is wicked as fuck in that movie too. You got John Leguizamo in there, a great cast. So that is probably my favorite Brian De Palma film and probably my favorite Al Pacino film. It's a go out and buy it all day long. One of the best movies ever. Now I have the last little 4K double dip, and this one was actually sent to me by the awesome people over at Troma Entertainment, and that is the Toxic Avenger Collection in 4K. This has all 4 films, Toxic Avenger Part 2, Part 3, and Citizen Toxie. I have only seen the original. I watched it for the first time a little over a month ago with Sean Chandler the day before we saw the remake at Fantastic Fest. I have a review for that out if you want to check it out. No clue when the fuck that's coming out to be able to tell you. But as much as I expected to not get the appeal of Toxic Avenger because I'm watching it for the first time in 2023, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it is, and I do have interest in checking out the other three. Just haven't had a chance to yet, but very cool set if you're a fan. You know, they got the really cool artwork here. They all got individual 4Ks with the original posters, and there's even a card and stuff in here from Lloyd Kaufman. So it's pretty good little set here, and I appreciate people at Troma sending this to me because they had messaged me before I had seen the original or the remake, and I was like, yeah, I guess, send it to me, sure. And then luckily I enjoyed both of them, so I was actually excited to get home and check it out. That is going to be it for all the double dips. Now, moving on to the horror pack stuff. All right, so I've got about 5 months worth of horror pack releases that are stacked up here. Horror Pack is a Blu-ray and DVD subscription service. If you're interested in it, you just choose the number of movies that you want, and they send you a mystery pack of horror movies every single month. So if you're somebody that's trying to build out their physical media collection or just likes having surprise movies show up on their door every month, check it out. But most of these I've never heard of, so it's going to be pretty quick. You have Proxy. And if you have seen any of these that I don't say very much about and you think that I definitely need to check it out, please let me know in the comments. You have 73 Minutes, To Your Last Death, Trapped, which I actually have seen before. It's like an erotic thriller with Kevin Bacon and Charlize Theron where they kidnap her daughter. And essentially I remember that Kevin Bacon basically wants to fuck her to then give her daughter back. Like, that's the ransom, is pussy. So I remember it being interesting, but not overly memorable. What We Do in the Shadows. Very cool that this came because this actually was one of the movies that I saw for 31 on 31, the Creatures of the Night. So I was glad that this one came into it. Frankenstein Syndrome. Oh, and let's see. Trapped, I don't really remember enough about. I'll just say stream it. And What We Do in the Shadows, I'll say stream it too, because it's a very specific style of humor. Kicking Blood. I thought I said licking blood. Kicking Blood. Slender Man. Horror Pack. I don't recommend sending out movies that suck as bad as this one if you want people to keep doing your subscription service. That was very disappointing to open up and find a movie that's this shitty in there. That is a skip it. Borderline and unfuck this movie. That movie is terrible. The Possession of Hannah Grace. Obstacle Corpse. Spell. The Turning, which I never saw, but literally heard everybody say that it was horrible. So see my comments on Slender Man. Prosper. Emily. The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do, a long fucking title that's stupid and it should never have been that long. This movie's fine. I was a little more forgiving on it when I first saw it, but the time that I've rewatched it and since, it's so much less interesting and memorable than the first two that it's kind of frustrating. So I didn't buy this one, so I'm glad that I got it, but I don't know when I'll rewatch it. It's one of the more forgettable of the Conjuring franchise, which has got a lot of forgettable movies in it. Fangs Out. Probably the best movie in this collection, and that is Spree. I was very, very happy to open up and find this one. This is a really cool movie that I think I like it more because I'm a YouTuber and because I'm a quote-unquote influencer, so I understand a lot of the things that they are talking about in this movie, and there's a lot of very smart satire in this. Essentially, you've got Joe Carey here, who we all know from Stranger Things, and he's this nerdy guy that is trying so desperately to be a successful influencer, but he just can't because he's just so fucking weird and just brain dead on how to engage with an audience. So essentially, the movie starts off, it's like a found footage movie where he has snapped and he is essentially going to have one very fucked up day where he is going to go viral at all costs. And he starts killing people and live streaming it, and it just gets wild and crazy and pretty cool movie. I had a lot of fun with that one. The first Purge, it's okay. Stream that one. I thought that it was a little weird that they introduce you to a drug dealing kingpin, and then they try to make him like John McClane in the third act, like you're supposed to root for this guy. The Intruder, never heard much good about this one either. Michael Ealy, Megan Good, and Dennis Quaid. Is this a Screen Gems movie? Yeah, Screen Gems. They have the same types of movies like every single year, and the same 2 or 3 leads. It's either Michael Ealy or Idris Elba or Morris Chestnut in some thriller. Loon, Incarnation. Oh, horror pack. The Craft Legacy. Ugh. Fantasy Island. I never saw this one. Witching Season. And though the cast intrigues me a little bit, I never saw Detention. You got Josh Hutcherson here and Dane Cook. So I'm intrigued enough to check this one out just based off the cast. Has anybody seen this one? How much of a priority should I make it? So that is this one, guys. That is the end of this long, gigantic-sized off-the-shelves video. Thank you guys for your patience. For those of you guys that are fans of this series, I know it took a while, but nonetheless, it hopefully won't be that long for the next one. I just had some busy months and had some slow months of buying movies, and I just kind of made up for it here in the last 2. But anyway, that's the end of this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for a playlist of all of my 2023 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my most recent Blu-ray collection video up here. It's like 1,700 plus Blu-rays up there. I'm going to update this probably next year, but check that out. It's currently the top watched video on my channel. Please like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.